This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Helping you find emotional, spiritual, and physical balance. What does your future hold? It's time to find out with Psychic Suzanna.
Yes, you are right where you need to be. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Please be aware you can always find us at psychicsusanna.com. That's where you get a free question, see my schedule. It keeps changing. Always check the schedule. Then you can always go to KFAB.com. Latest news on the flood. You get the best information at this station. This is the only place you need to be, by the way. KFAB.com, we've got a place for the flood on our internet. We also have all the shows. You can listen to them online, on air,
Life
anywhere.
with Psychics.
Anywhere you want to be. And yes, that was repeating me again with a deep voice. Thank you, Sunday Jim.
No problem. Trying to lower the voice now.
By the way, the people do call you Sunday Jim to me. They ask if I'm with you.
Sunday Jim.
Yes, yeah.
What a moniker.
Yeah.
Every Sunday,
Yeah.
Here we go.
So this is the show you want to listen to if you want to grow. Because I want to grow. Every day with Life with Psychic Suzanna, I want to grow. So I look for people that will empower us with their knowledge, with their books, and we bring them to the air so you can listen and you can grow. Also, please join us on Life with Psychic Suzanna on Facebook. Then you get to see what's coming up this week. And then you can go to Susanna Stickney on Facebook and Twit, and then you can find out what I'm doing. I always try to leave you with an intention for every day. It is not what we do in our life. The question is, how do we serve others? How do we make our life better? How do we help others better their life? You know, when we're at the Golden Gates, I'm not sure the big man's going to say, what did you do for yourself? He's going to ask you how you made the world better for other people. And right now, today, I'm honored that we're going to have someone on who has dedicated 23 years to our armed services. He was in the Army. His name is Major Jeff Struecker. He was in Black Hawk Down, and the gentleman who played him in Black Hawk Down, I lost the paper that said it. But anyway, he was Black Hawk Down. He joined the service, I believe, when he was 18 years old. So at that age, he decided to serve the greater good. And I want to welcome to the airwaves Major Struecker, Jeff Struecker. Welcome to the airwaves.
Thanks so much, Susanna.
I have so many papers. You have so much written about you. It's really hard. Sunday, Jim went and picked it all up on the thing, and I've got about 20 papers here. And I write notes, and it's driving me crazy. But here's what I want to ask you. Is it true that you're from Fort Dodge, Iowa?
That's right, I am.
Marvelous. So we understand where you got that love of nation, the love of heart. And right now you're in where?
I live in Georgia.
In Georgia? Well, at least they get some good understanding of what life is like. Major Jeff, what made you decide to join the Army when you were 18 years old?
That's right, yeah. I was still in high school when I decided to join the Army. There's a couple of reasons, I think. The biggest of which is that I wanted some adventure, but I also wanted to give my country back. I realized that my country's given me a lot, and I wanted to give back. And so one of the natural ways to do that was to serve in the military. And when I went to talk to an Army recruiter, I wanted to know what the toughest job in the Army was, and he said Airborne Rangers, and that's where I spent most of my 23 years in the Army.
In the Airborne Rangers.
Right.
And so your part in Black Hawk Down, you were tell me about where you were then.
I was a sergeant serving in the Rangers in Somalia. I was the guy who led the Humvees through the city streets, and so with any of your listeners who have seen the movie Black Hawk Down, the actor who plays me in the movie is Brian Van Holt, and usually you'll see my character when you see the Humvees in the movie.
Okay. And now you've also then become in the service of the Lord through what religion?
Yeah, I'm a Southern Baptist chaplain, and I serve on staff. Now that I'm retired from the Army, I serve on staff at Calvary Baptist Church in Columbus, Georgia.
Okay. And what would you say in all of your travels, how many countries have you been to?
Oh, I've been to a lot. Unfortunately, I've been to a lot of war zones, from the invasion of Panama to Desert Storm to Somalia to Iraq to Afghanistan. But I've been to a number of other countries just doing training.
And when you go into these countries in the attack force, what are your main thoughts?
Well, obviously my thoughts are on doing my job and doing my duty and serving my country honorably. But I'm a father and a husband, and I always think about my family when I'm gone, and hope the best for them. In my absence, I'm concerned about them, and then I always think about the men and women that I serve next to, not wanting to ever do anything that would let them down.
Do you, and in all of your travels to your countries, what lesson have you been taught about the USA?
Well, I think generally speaking, most countries around the world, they very much love the United States. They view our country very highly. There are some governments who don't care that much for us, and as a result, they kind of indoctrinate their people not to care that much. But as a whole, most of the countries, most of the people around the rest of the world have a very high opinion of the United States. And as a result, I don't ever want to do anything that would cause them to lose that high opinion of us.
And how did you, as I understood this, you won the 1996 Best Ranger competition?
Yeah, that's an annual competition held every year in Georgia. It invites all of the branches of the armed services, and other countries will show up to participate as well. I competed for 3 consecutive years, and my partner Isaac Amazel and I ended up winning in 1996. But I'll tell you, Suzanna, that was strictly because God was with us, and God was making it possible for me to do what I really wasn't physically able to do, but God took care of the events for me.
Explain to us non-military people what the event was.
The Best Ranger competition is a 3-day-long, non-stop event. It basically covers a whole host of military-specific events. But most of them are very endurance-oriented, so it's long road marching with a heavy pack on your back. It's walking all night long. And there's no sleep programmed in this thing, so it's one event to the next, to the next, to the next. Jumping out of airplanes, shooting guns, you name it, it's all in there. All of them are timed. All of them you're competing with other guys. And in the end, some events are much more important to winning the competition than others. But there are also a lot of very technical events testing how smart you are, how technically proficient you are. And at the end, you compete as a 2-man team. And generally speaking, more than half of the teams that start this competition won't finish it.
Wow. Well, I'm very glad you were in the service, but may I ask you, Captain Major Jeff, how do you relate the faith and carrying a gun and defending the country? How do you relate those?
That's probably one of the most often asked questions that I've ever got. Is it okay for a guy who has a very strong faith, in my case, a Christian, is it okay for a Christian to go to war and potentially to kill somebody? And I say absolutely it is, with a couple of caveats or a couple of things to keep in mind. The first is there is certainly a difference. The Bible makes this very clear between killing and murder. And what happens on the battlefield is not murder, it's killing, though it can become murder if a soldier's not careful. Secondly, you are an agent of the state. In other words, as a soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine, you are in the service to your country, and you are doing your country's bidding. But it's how you do your country's bidding that really matters. And then lastly, I tell folks that are asking about that question that ultimately the difference between murder and killing, it comes down to what's going on inside your heart. And only you know what's going on inside your heart. Only God knows what's going on inside your heart. And so that's a very fine line. But as long as your heart is right, as long as you're doing this for the honorable reasons, as long as you do it right and don't, unnecessarily kill or harshly, perform your duties, I think it is honorable what a soldier does in combat, and I think God has no issues with it.
Well, I truly thank God for the service. One of the questions I always ask is, when do you stand up? When do you stand up against someone doing harm to another? And I like to believe our government is the government that does that.
Yeah.
And I like to believe Hitler wouldn't have gotten that far and murdered that many if more people had stood up and looked around. Do you
I would agree completely.
Would you agree? So when you were doing this Best Ranger competition and no sleep for 3 days, how do you put God in competition? I want to hear that one.
Well, that's a great question. I haven't been asked that very often. I really wanted to shatter the myth that in order to be a Christian, you had to be weak and timid and, a pushover.
Bravo.
There are a lot of people that have that kind of impression
Bravo.
about Christianity, but I don't see that when I read the Bible, and certainly that's not the kind of person that Jesus is when I read the Bible. I mean, Jesus was a man's man. He was tough to the core, tough enough that he was able to take the punishment of the cross for my sin and able to give me, take my place on the cross. So when I was competing in the Best Ranger competition, I wanted to shatter the myth that you had to be weak and be timid as a Christian, but I also competed I also knew that people would recognize me as a Christian, and so I don't use foul language. I didn't, twist the rules to get ahead. I didn't do any of those things. I tried to play the game honestly and fairly, but be as tough of a competitor as I could. And ultimately, like I said earlier, I think God worked out the circumstances so that I could win that competition. And in the process, I wanted nothing more than to just give God the credit for it. And that's what I hope I have the chance to do.
Marvelous. You have just done it. Thank you. We're going to take a small break. We'll be right back. We are talking to Major Jeff Struecker. He has written several books. We're going to be talking about the books he's written, and we'll be right back with him. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB.
Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB.
Yes, you are back. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. This is the place you want to be. If you want to grow past your limits that you had yesterday, we're going to bring people on who will help you learn, help you grow. Please go to the website, psychicsusanna.com. You get a free question. Also, go to KFAB.com, and all the shows are listed there. So I want you to go listen. I want you to learn and grow with us. Stay tuned every Sunday. When you join Life with Psychic Suzanna, you get to see what's coming up this coming week. And also, you get to join us at Susanna Stickney. Then you get to go and find out what's going on in my life. And I give you an affirmation or a thought every day that we need to work together to bring the world to a better place. Right now, I am talking to Major Jeff Struecker. He is from Fort Dodge, Iowa. Woo! I love that. He's a U.S. Army Ranger. He was in Black Hawk Down. That was one of the things he's done. He's been in the military service for 23 years. He's been helping us understand his faith and his military service. He's the Army. So let's go back to Major Jeff Struecker. Hello, Major.
Hey, I'm still here, Susanna.
All right. Jeff, I just got a couple other questions. Being in the Army, being in the service, winning the awards of, the Tough Ranger Award and all of that, you must come across a lot of foul language. Tell me about that. How do you handle that as a Christian?
Well, there are a lot of people all over the country who work in workplaces where there's just a lot of people using foul language. For me, that was certainly true in the military, and I'll be honest with you, I got caught up in that for my first couple of years in the Army, and then I realized really quickly I need to stop talking like this because it doesn't honor God. And easily one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my life is try to remove all that foul language from my vocabulary. And it's still a bit of a struggle today, though I think with God's help I've been able to overcome it.
And so we're here now working in the Army. We are doing things that you helped us understand that God ordains us for us to do. Protect one another, take care of each other. Tell me about how you what brought you to writing books?
Okay, that's a great question. The reason why I started writing books in the first place is because a lot of people heard of my story. They heard of my Christian faith from Black Hawk Down, and they wanted to hear from me. But I just recently retired from the Army a couple of months ago, and I got many, many requests to come to some civic event, some church event, whatever, even schools, and speak to those audiences, and I couldn't fill most of those events. So eventually a publisher contacted me and said, Jeff, why don't you put your story into a book and let that book go speak to some audiences that you'll never be able to visit. So I wrote my first book, The Road to Unafraid, about 6 years ago. It's my life story, and it's a nonfiction book. After that, as an Army chaplain, I started going back and forth to Iraq and Afghanistan a lot. And I was taking Christian books over there, but most of my guys weren't interested in the books that I was taking over. So I started looking at what they were reading and noticed that most of those soldiers were reading books like Tom Clancy and John Grisham, authors like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came back to the States, I started asking around, is there anything like this that's written with a Christian influence? And most everybody said, no, that stuff doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, my literary agent, Jonathan Clements, said, Jeff, why don't you write it? And I started this series of books. The most recent just came out last week, Fallen Angel. It's the third in this series, and it's a book. It's kind of military thriller. It'll keep you on the edge of your seat, but it has Christian images woven throughout the whole book.
Now, it is the precursor was Certain Jeopardy. Can you give us a rundown of each book?
Yes, I can.
Tell me about Certain Jeopardy. That was the first, correct?
Each book follows a special operations team around the world in dangerous circumstances. In Certain Jeopardy, the special operations team is sent to Venezuela to try to get a nuclear scientist who has been held hostage by the Venezuelan government because they're in a deal with Al-Qaeda to sell this nuclear scientist to Al-Qaeda to force him and by putting pressure on his family, basically, to force him to provide Al-Qaeda the means to make a nuclear weapon. The second book, the follow-up to that, is called Blaze of Glory. And in Blaze of Glory, there's a string of suicide bombers, but these suicide bombers are young, very attractive women who are being forced to blow themselves up because if they don't, the people that are threatening them will kill all of their family members off. So this special operations team is sent to figure out who is behind all these suicide bombings and to stop it. But the most recent, the book that just came out last week, Fallen Angel, it is a book about a U.S. intelligence satellite that's shot out of the sky by the Chinese government, and the Chinese government are going to try to get the technology that's on board this intelligence satellite. Well, the U.S. government can't let that technology fall into the wrong hands, so they send this special operations team to go get it, and in the process they end up in a fight for their lives just to get to the satellite, let alone to try to recover the technology.
So all of these books are basically inside books to leading us to the minds of people like you who were in the service. So you're writing from an inside job. You're not looking at it and saying this is. This comes from your experience. Are you telling us that?
That's right. Well, they're fiction books, so I mean, I didn't actually do any of these things, nor did anybody. But we're trying to write. Al Gansky's the co-author with me, and Al and I are trying to write books that are so relevant and so real that it's a storyline and it's technology that could happen tomorrow. And that's what we've tried to do with this Fallen Angel. This Fallen Angel is a play on words. Angel 112 is an intelligence satellite that is shot down.
Okay, and the first book, I want to talk about the first book, too, which we can also get. It's The Road to Unafraid, How the Army's Top Ranger Faced Fear, Found Courage Through Black Hawk Down and Beyond. This is your personal story?
That's right.
And what would you say your personal story would be saying?
Yeah, the reason why I wrote that book is not to tell people who I am and what I've done. Most people could care less. Really, I wrote that book because I know a lot of men who are really, really tough guys, but when it comes down to it, they struggle with fear just like everybody else on the planet does. Well, the title is worded the way it is on purpose. The book is The Road to Unafraid, and it is to teach people, but specifically to teach men and really tough guys like firemen, police officers, military, to teach those guys how to handle some of life's greatest fears. And the solution, by the way, the answer to the question is by placing genuine faith in Jesus Christ. He will give you the courage to deal with your greatest fears.
Wow. Well, I'm very interested in looking at these books, The Fallen Angels. Would you say we should start with Certain Jeopardy, Blaze of Glory, and then Fallen Angel?
Well,
or do they all step aside?
The series is designed so you can pick up any book. You don't need to have the others, and we tell enough about the characters that you don't really miss anything by picking it up anywhere. But if you want to know the whole story, then, yeah, start with Certain Jeopardy, go to Blaze of Glory, and then to Fallen Angels.
So we have the same characters. Who is the main character?
Much of the same characters, though it's not all of them. Mm-hmm. One of the main characters is Sergeant Major Eric Moyer. He is the guy who's in charge of this special operations team. And though he's not a Christian, he is a guy who knows that his country is depending on him, and if he fails his mission, it could seriously hurt our national security.
Okay. This has been a pleasure and an honor talking to you. We are talking to Major Jeff Struecker, who has written the book Fallen Angel that just came out last week. He is an author of quite a few books. Please check him out. This is a man of faith who teaches and I believe walks his own talk. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Suzanna. It's been great to be with you.
And God bless. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too.
Okay.
Bye.
This is Life with Psychic Suzanna. We will be back in a few minutes. Before we go, I want you to know we have a conversation coming up with another great serviceman, someone who was in the FBI for over 26 years. Yes, 26 years he served our country. Again, the big guy is not going to ask us, what did you do for yourself? He's going to ask you, how did you make the place you stand better? What did you do for another to make it better? We talked to Major Struecker. He certainly did that. Right after the 8 o'clock hour, right after the news, we're going to be talking to Bob Hammer, who's 26 years in the FBI. And he wrote a book called Targets Down. We're going to talk to him about that. We're going to hear about a life being undercover after the 8 o'clock hour. This is the show you listen to. This is the show that'll give you all the information you need. This is the time we can come back to. What is that sign you just did?
Oh, just stretch it out, Susanna. You have just about a minute.
Okay.
And then we're going to be heading up to the news.
Okay.
So,
Is that what? I've never seen that sign before.
Yeah, that's what that sign was.
That's from Sunday Jim giving me weird signs. By the way, do you listen to our show every Sunday? If you miss a Sunday, and I know sometimes it's hard, but please try to be here. You can go back, and all of them are listed under KFAB, or PsychicSusanna.com. Like you can go to February February and listen to Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters. Are you still looking for a job? Well, looking for a job is a job. You don't give up. You just alter the look. You also could go to August 15th when we had Captain Carey, who's the commander of the gang force here in Omaha, telling us preventive care. Go back, research, find the knowledge you need to better your life right here on 1110 KFAB. This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. Now, you can always find us at psychicsusanna.com, where you get a preview of, you get a free question. You can also go to KFAB.com, where we have all the shows we've ever done up on satellite, so you can listen to them anytime. Today we're going to be interviewing an author. And this author, the reason I wanted to interview him is not so much for his books, but much more for his life. We are talking to Bob Hamer, who pens Targets Down. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Thanks, Suzanne, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, now, Bob, first of all, the thing that really got me is that you have been 26 years with the FBI. Is that correct?
That's correct. But, every time somebody says that, it really makes me seem old. But, yep, it was 26 years as a street agent with the FBI, many of those years undercover. So I spent a lot of time being somebody other than myself.
Wow. Now, you wrote this, the book, and the book actually is, I understand, the name of the hero is what again?
It's Matt Hogan. He's a younger, a lot better looking, and has more hair than I do, but there's a lot of Bob Hamer in him. Okay. So you wrote from your experiences in Targets Down. Now, you have a couple other books, which the other book is Enemy Among Us, which is fiction, as I understand. But yeah, that's the first in the Matt Hogan series. That's when I first introduced my hero, Matt Hogan, and then this is Targets Down is the second in that book. And then my first book was called The Last Undercover, and that chronicles actually 13 of my undercover assignments.
Marvelous. So as you're writing the book and you're putting the book in from your experiences, do you find yourself going through the emotional stuff with it? How does it come? How do you pen a book? Tell me how you pen this book.
You're right. I mean, this book, Targets Down, deals with an undercover agent who's tasked with finding who killed two people and critically wounded an FBI agent's wife. It takes him into the bowels of Russian organized crime and neo-Nazis and human trafficking. All of these are some areas that I dealt with in my undercover capacity. So I bring a lot of that to the page with my true experiences. I would hope that the reader comes across with, wow, this reads like it's true, because in many respects it's pretty close to the truth.
And tell me, what made you join the FBI?
I couldn't sing or dance. I was
and you don't tell jokes well, by the way. Just want to go with that one, too. But go ahead.
I was an attorney in the Marine Corps. I was a judge advocate. I hated being a lawyer. I was looking for something a lot more exciting, and the FBI doors were open, and so I joined the FBI. And
to be an undercover agent, you were risking your life for our country, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, as much as any law enforcement officer, I mean, everyone that's out there wearing a badge is risking his life. But, yeah, I did. I mean, I went to face with some pretty bad people. And was there ever a time you thought this country isn't worth it? And tell me about the dedication that it took to be in the service for 26 years. I want to understand how someone, we hear so much criticism about this beautiful country. I'm so proud to be an American. And what makes men and women dedicate their life to keeping us safe? What would you say your motive and your thought was? Well, I certainly never lost faith in America or in my family. Faith, family, and freedom. Those were three things that meant a lot to me. So, it wasn't necessarily that every day I was on the front line working undercover, I was thinking about the flag, but I was trying to make America a little bit safer for my family and friends. So that was a big motivation for me. But I think probably every Marine and soldier and serviceman and woman that you talk to, every law enforcement official, there is a strong sense of right and wrong, and there's a strong sense of adventure. And I was able to find both, be able to fulfill both those in the FBI, and certainly working undercover, I found a strong sense of adventure. Well, now,
you come from the Christian background.
That's true.
So did you find that your faith was put at test at any time?
Never really. I never felt like my faith was put to the test. In fact, I think it was my faith that sustained me. I mean, I believed I was where I was supposed to be, and I probably took some chances that ordinary people wouldn't take, and I just figured if my time was up, my time was up, and for some reason I was able to walk away from some pretty pucker factor moments in my undercover capacity.
And your faith is what sustains you. I love that statement. And, Bob, say it again. It was beautiful. The fact that your faith now is your hero in Targets Down, is he a faithful man also?
Well, he is in the sense that his wife is the one that's the faithful, is the Christian. And Matt is searching. He's trying to find himself. His faith was shaken actually in book 1. He talks about when he lost his brother in Afghanistan in 2005. So Matt is kind of, not only is he on a quest to find the bad guys, but he's also on a quest to solidify his beliefs.
And do you feel that in your service you helped others solidify their beliefs in faith in the country?
I mean, look, nobody ever confused me with Billy Graham. I mean, I wasn't out
You don't
preaching.
look much like him at all. No. Don't
He's
even
got
try to
hair.
go there, Bob.
I don't, I wasn't out there to preach. I was out there to make the world safe so that others could exercise their First Amendment rights. And I would hope that that's what we did, that we made this country great enough for everyone to practice their beliefs, whatever they might be.
Bob Hamer is the author of The Target, the Targets Down. He's also the author of The Last Undercover Agent. Is that correct?
Yeah, The Last Undercover.
I want to read that one, too. And Enemies Among Us. He is an author who takes what what really caught me, Bob, is you took your Christian faith into war against evil. And I find a lot of people don't stand up against evil. Tell me, Bob, of all your assignments, what was your most difficult assignment?
I worked cover against mafia, the Mexican mafia, Sicilian mob, various organized crime groups. My most difficult case, psychologically and emotionally, was NAMBLA. I infiltrated NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association. It's a group that hides behind the First Amendment, but it's men that are sexually attracted to little boys. I dealt with them not on a daily basis, but for 3 years I was in the organization. I sat with these men face to face as they talked about what they had done to little boys, where they wanted to go to have sex with little boys. Fortunately, we were successful enough that at the end we convicted 8 members of the group's inner circle, and it ran the gamut, Suzanna. We had Mensa members and the illiterate. We convicted a PhD psychologist, a minister, a dentist, a couple special ed teachers, a bodybuilder and personal trainer, and a blue-collar worker. So we ran that socioeconomic gamut, but all of these were men that were attracted to little boys.
Oh. It must have been hard to be a Christian and being in the bowels of evil and to fight it. But thank you, Bob. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your books. We are talking to Bob Hamer. He wrote The Targets Down. Thank you again.
Thanks a lot.
This is Life with Psychic Suzanna on 1110 KFAB. We are waiting for your phone calls. The number is 1-800-543-1110 or 558-1110. Let's talk about your future. Let's find out what's ahead for you.